Today we've seen a bit of a pullback in crypto. Now, hopefully that's not too much of a surprise to you. If it is, definitely stay tuned and keep listening. But even if it wasn't a surprise to you, I do think that like we have some stats and some information and data to kind of prove how we could kind of tell that we might have been seeing this type of pullback coming. Now, of course, Trump tweeting, not always a perfect way to have a metric or a probability index for that, but we could see a lot of other things going on within the crypto market that I think are going to lead us to this ultimate type of outcome, whether it happened off of a tweet or not. So I want to talk a little bit about that today and just go over some of the things that we're seeing overall in the crypto market, where we stand in the short term, possibly in the medium term, and then as well as in the longer term. So we'll go on ahead and we'll take a look at all of that. So first off, I want to just take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart, because we can see off of the Bitcoin chart, we have seen a little bit of a pullback. Now, right now, we are seeing a bit of a bounce on this pretty strong line of support that we have seen. This is a line that we've had ever since back in December when we kind of saw this. We saw this kind of coming around. So this has been a very, very strong point of resistance. We've now maybe turned it into a support. We'll have to see. But this has been a very kind of key pivot point for months and months and months at this point in time. And so I do think that, we'll have to just kind of see how this kind of rolls on and if we can actually hold this level of support. If we can hold this level of support, it's incredibly bullish for Bitcoin on the longer time frame. If we can't, not necessarily bearish, it's just we do kind of jump back into this kind of upper zone, and then we do actually fall back into this lower zone if we were to fall back below this 90,000 range. I find that pretty unlikely, at least in the short term. Midterm, long term, obviously anything is possible, but I think in the short term we are still probably going to be looking to see kind of this bullish structure and this bullish sentiment continue. So that's kind of what I'm expecting here. If we do look, this type of pullback, though, I do think was very, very much expected. We could see we were pushing the tops of the Bollinger Bands for weeks at this point in time, and we could see that we were overbought on the RSI. We are no longer overbought. We are still pretty strong, definitely not weak by any means, and we are towards the top of the Bollinger Bands here. So there is further room to fall. I don't know exactly how far we will. I think more than anything else, we're kind of looking to see something like what we've seen here in this range and also here in this range, which is just more of a consolidation, a little bit of some breathing room coming back after some really strong pumps that we have seen over the past handful of days. And so I think that's probably more of what we will see in the most likely outcome. Now, of course, if we see some more wild tweets or anything like that, of course, this will have a negative impact on crypto as well as everything else in the market. But at least for right now, kind of all, kind of uncontrollable variables aside, I do think that, kind of what we should expect to see is a little bit of that consolidation, and then we'll go from there. Now, if you do look, we can see that we actually have a lot of our trades still open here. The pie trade has definitely come down a little bit. I closed about half of this out, and we've set this at break even. So at this point, we don't really care too much which direction it goes. XRP, of course, this is basically just a free runner at this point. Likewise with SUI as well as Ondo. This was just a very small trade. This is one that really is kind of not material in relation to this portfolio that we have been trading on here. And then obviously Bitcoin here, very low leverage. We've taken this couple months back. This has been open for quite some time, doing quite well, so no reason to kind of be quitting a winner here. So anyway, that's kind of how we've been doing on the trades. Things have been looking really, really nice. When I do get back home and back in the office, I will show you some other trades that I have been taking while I've been enjoying my time here on vacation. Of course, I can't just relax and unwind. I've got to be doing something, and so I have been doing some trading, and I actually been having some really fantastic results. I know we had that TARS AI video come out about a couple weeks back at this point. I made an absolutely wonderful trade off of that. I think it was about 500% gains is what the average was. So really, really fantastic returns going on there. Things have really turned out great there. So overall, if you are interested in wanting to do some trading, BTCC is a fantastic spot. I also do have the links to WEEX and Phemex in the descriptions below if you are interested. All three of them really great places to trade. BTCC in particular does have the demo trading account, so it is nice. You can kind of just dip your toes in, try out certain strategies, see what works, see what doesn't. They also do have that 10% bonus on first time deposits, which is of course a really great thing. and up to $10,055 in deposit bonuses. So of course, all of that type of stuff in there if you are interested. For those of you who aren't interested, we'll kind of get back into the video here. For those of you who are, links are in the description below, and then obviously, you know, you can do that at the end of this video, or you can go ahead and do that right now, whichever works for you. Moving along, I did actually want to take a quick look at the liquidation maps, because as we talked about in the SWE video yesterday, we kind of saw this coming. Obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, errant tweets aside, obviously, you know, that did kind of move the market, but what we had been seeing is that this was lining up. We can see on the 1 day, we've actually flipped back towards liquidating shorts being kind of the most likely outcome. We can see about 4.2 billion of cumulative shorts to liquidate compared to about 1.87 of longs. However, if we do look at the 7 and 30 day, we can see 7 and 30 day still very much kind of tilted towards liquidating longs. Almost 12 billion here on the long liquidation side on the 7 day, and then we can see on the shorts about 6 billion. So almost a 2-to-1 here. And then if we do look at the 30 day, things get even crazier. We can see up here 17.5 billion. This is a very, very large number, of course. This is actually much higher than what we have seen typically. This is actually, I think, like 22.5, 23 billion when we looked just a couple days ago on the SWE video. So definitely a really, really massive move here. And this is very, very large numbers. This, of course, is not something to be overlooked. So I do think we could potentially see a further move to the downside here. Again, nothing is guaranteed. We have started to see this kind of break that correlation, because a couple days ago when we looked, the 1, 7, and 30 day were all massively skewed towards liquidating longs, just because people were getting quite excited. We'd seen Bitcoin go up. If you remember the Bitcoin chart that we just looked at, it's very, very clear Bitcoin was essentially going up only at that point in time. So as we're starting to see this flip, obviously it's less of a clear indicator. There could be some kind of divergence and some choppiness and all this type of stuff happening. There is still kind of, I would say, a bias of maybe seeing a bit of a more extended move to the downside. Of course, you know, we don't know for sure exactly what's going to happen, but just kind of based on what we're seeing based on off the liquidation maps, it does seem to be a possibility. Now, if we go on ahead and we take a look at Bitcoin dominance, we can see Bitcoin dominance still very much on that uptrend here. We did break below kind of this like super uptrend, but we have kind of fallen back down with the line. This is actually not saved. Again, when we get back in the office, we'll see all of the things here, but we can kind of see quite quickly here kind of the line that we have been following all the way up. I can just draw a super quick one. I mean, keep in mind, this is like a multi-year long trend that we have been seeing, kind of sitting along this type of trend line. So we are still definitely very much above that. Haven't actually even come down to that level yet. If we did come down to that level, we'd be about 60% dominance. We are about 64%. Now, if we zoom in, you can see we did actually fall a little bit down. We had a little bit of some rotations into alts, very, very minor compared to what we've seen other places. We can see that this is a much larger rotation into alts, kind of in that November to December time frame. And things have been doing all right. Not near the magnitude of what we saw then, though. And we can actually see this looking at the total 2 chart as well. We can see we have come back up a little bit on the alts. We're seeing those lows back in early April. We have since kind of continued to rally back up. Here we are kind of in mid to late May here. Kind of hit a stopping point here about this 1.27 trillion range. Again, another pretty strong level of both support and resistance. We can see here kind of this whole zone. I'm going to kind of draw the average here. You can see a little bit above here, a little bit below here has kind of been like that point of both support and resistance. So between kind of about the 1.31 and about the 1.27 trillion dollar range, that is kind of the main kind of inflection point for alts that we have seen so far. So I would not say that we've gotten into a really strong alt rotation quite yet. We have not broken above this level of resistance, and this has been a very strong level of both support and resistance as we've kind of when we saw back in December, and then of course when we broke below it, have been having issues getting back above it. So this is going to be a very key piece to remember and a key piece to reference. If we do actually break above this, then maybe we are actually starting to see a little bit of some alt rotations here. But again, you know, we just don't know for sure until we actually start to see it happen. Now, of course, you know, with Bitcoin dominance continuing to rise and the alts kind of struggling a little bit, I would say this is not the time to be going ham on alts. I'm of course making limited trades here and there when we start to see various rotations come in and out of vogue, I guess we could say. But overall, I'm not looking to go super all in on any sort of altcoin or anything. Now, of course, if you do believe that we will be seeing an alt season later on in the year, or maybe even in 2026 or whatever, in 2 months from now, then maybe it could be a good time to accumulate. But I usually like to trade based off of confirmations and, breaks, retests, all this type of stuff. We can see that with the charts, we've been pretty successful so far. And so I wanted to essentially just kind of give my take there of kind of what I'm looking for and what we could expect to see overall within the crypto market. So I think overall, again, in the maybe midterm, things looking potentially okay for alts if we can kind of break above that level of resistance that we were referring to. I think Bitcoin's still continuing to look really, really strong. We do actually see, we can see a tweet here that the SEC is considering approving Bitcoin index options trading on the NASDAQ. So again, this could realistically continue to see Bitcoin continue to go further and further higher in terms of the Bitcoin dominance chart, just because there's so much more like institutional access and institutional liquidity that will be dumping into Bitcoin. Now, of course, some of this may flow into other crypto, options, futures, other crypto avenues just more generally. But in terms of like structured rails around various crypto, like institutional access to crypto, it's definitely going to be Bitcoin. And so I do think that we should maybe taper our expectations for some just kind of wild Bitcoin dominance drop off like we have seen in the past, just because there's so much more institutional pipes and plumbing and things like that around Bitcoin that we haven't actually seen in the past, and it hasn't necessarily made its way into the rest of the market. So that's just one thing that I'm kind of I'm looking at, I'm considering things like that. So again, taper your expectations would kind of be my expectation there. But I do still think that we will see some, very strong levels of alt rotations and things like that, just because it's overall looking to be a really, really strong market in the short term. Again, I think we'll probably see a somewhat limited, maybe extended like consolidation to pullback type of period, just while we let some of these metrics reset a little bit. In the midterm, I still do think, we'll see a pretty decent move both from Bitcoin as well as maybe a kind of more limited altcoin rotation. And then I think long term things looking really, really bullish. No real major signs of concern, at least from my perspective, that we could be entering more of like a longer bear period. I do still think we're probably a ways away from that, barring some sort of black swan or unforeseen event. I think kind of from a fundamental institutional type of perspective, I think things are actually looking pretty decent. So in my mind, I would say, I'm not actually planning to get too carried away on any sort of like trading, or I'm not mortgaging the farm to go buy altcoins or anything like that. Right now I'm just I've got like a trading bag. I'm focusing on getting better at leverage trading. That's kind of been the main thing that I've been focusing on recently, also, as well as just reading charts better, analyzing the market, things like that. I do think that there will be a point in the market in which we might kind of shift more into like trying to find altcoin gems, or trying to, I don't know, do other stuff, pick the next best NFT or whatever it happens to be this next cycle. I don't think we're at that point yet, so that I'm just kind of essentially mainly focusing on kind of the leverage trading. I think now is a pretty good time to be learning about that, so that's why I've been spending a bunch of time focusing on. Been having a pretty good time and a decent bit of success with it as well. Again, just kind of following the metrics, following the data, not trying to get too crazy or fancy with anything. I've found that boring generally works fairly well. So anyway, that's enough of my ramblings. Again, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, a like and a subscribe really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, obviously just drop them in the comment section. I do try to read and respond to all of those. I have been a little bit slow with me being out on vacation. As you can see, it's a very nice vacation so far. I've had a really great time, but I am definitely looking forward to getting back into the office and getting back to the consistency of making the videos and all that type of stuff. So again, likes, shares, subscribes, all that good type of stuff. Really nice and super helpful. And then also, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section, and we'll see you guys in the next one. And again, if you are looking to start leverage trading and learn a little bit about that, all that type of stuff, links are in the description below for that as well. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.